This is session 9K, which is the Enhanced OMEGAMON implementation configuration with the latest IBM Z. These very, very long names for these presentations, guys. With the latest IBM Z Monitoring Configuration Manager Toolkit updates. And this is presented by Matthias and Ash. And just a little bit of meeting etiquette. Are we on the hour now? Yep, 3 o'clock. Yep, we are. So basically, the meeting event's being recorded just for an awareness. All participants will remain muted throughout the presentation. But if you've got any kind of questions, please post them in the chat, and I'll pick up on them. And if needs be, bring you off mute to ask a question. Otherwise, I'll hand over to Matthias and Ash to talk us through this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ash, do you want to say something? Otherwise, I would just take it.
I just want to say hello, welcome everyone for this joining this session. My name is Ash May. I'm one of the product managers working with the OMEGAMON portfolio. Primarily, Matthias is going to cover this session, and but if you have any questions, please do add them to the chat. I'll keep an eye on that. Over to you, Matthias.
Thank you very much, Ash. Yeah, my name is Matthias Schaffler. I'm working for Rocket Software as a product owner for the OMEGAMON configuration space, which is including obviously configuration manager, but also PalmGen. I'm also product owner for OMEGAMON DB2. And today we will talk about the latest news in Config Manager, which is the short title of the long title that was mentioned initially. All right, so let's jump right into it. I thought about structuring this in 3 big chunks. The first one is a quick level set on the concepts and architecture of Config Manager. Then we'll do a very short recap on existing functionality that we have shared in one of our last GSEs. And then the biggest part of this session will be the latest features that have been delivered over the last 12 to 18 months. So if you have questions, please do post them to the chat, and I'll try to answer them right away. Okay, so let's start with the quick level set. I think by now most customers have heard about Configuration Manager as being really the new and strategic way of configuring OMEGAMON agents and advanced storage monitoring agents for that matter. And it is residing in the same FMID as PalmGen. It's one of the base TMS set FMIDs. If you install it, so you have that automatically without having to install anything extra. The fact that this is an alternative to PalmGen, in this case, it means while PalmGen was mainly driven through ISPF panels, Configuration Manager does not have a single ISPF panel. It's purely driven by batch jobs, and it, has a new concept of storing the configuration parameters in so-called sparse runtime environment parameter specification members, and we will look at those in a minute. So at the end, all your configuration is stored in mainly one data set, which we call the RTE def data set. On the lower part of the screen, you see really the main JCL that drives all the config manager actions. And you see the actions listed in this action verb here. So there is create, discover, generate, delete actions, which make up, let me say, the main life cycle of an RTE. And then you have other actions like migrate, package and deploy. Migrate is very important if you want to take your existing PalmGen configuration and migrate those configuration parameters into the above mentioned RTDEF dataset artifact. Package and deploy are used for remote deployment and allow you to effectively pre-build runtime environments and then have them deployed on remote systems. So let's look quickly at the architecture. The architecture of Configuration Manager is very simple. At the heart of the product is a so-called workflow engine, which we call KCI Omega. So this workflow engine is fed by so-called workflows that are looking a little bit like JCL skeletons. They can be nested. There is a certain program flow implemented here. But at the end, what they are doing is they are producing your runtime environment data sets. They are regenerating, those workflows are regenerating or generating your parameter members, your started task definitions, and so forth. And they obviously read the input from the RTDEF dataset when it comes to what configuration parameters you specify and what products you want to configure. At the same time, there is also a built-in discovery which is called KCI Alpha, the program. It's effectively just an APF authorized KCI Omega executable that allows you to discover certain subsystems on your respective LPAR and produce a predefined set of basic parameters, so you do not have to manually specify those. Okay, a few words on the RTDEF dataset members and contents. Just close one window here. Sorry about that. So what this picture shows here is a sample content of the aforementioned RTEDEF dataset. So what we essentially do here is we provide a member scoped configuration, meaning that for each product that you're trying to configure, OMEGAMON JVM, DB2, and so forth, you have a configuration member which is prefixed with the respective product prefix, KJJ for OMEGAMON JVM, KD5 for OMEGAMON DB2, for example. So this allows you to encapsulate those parameters in specific members, and the sparse context comes in when we say, okay, what parameters do I really want to change in my configuration? And only those parameters you would expose in these members. All the rest is defaults that are taken under the cover for you. You don't need to worry about those. So that's the first part. And then we also implement a hierarchy structure for those members. So you see on this slide that there are Plex level members on the upper part of the screen. They all end with the suffix $parm. So this means that if you specify a parameter here, it is valid for all the RTEs of the sysplex that is contained in this RTDEF dataset. So you can store the configuration for all your runtime environments of a specific sysplex in a single RTDEF dataset. And by giving you the capability to scope the configuration parameters at the Plex, at the sysplex level, or at the LPAR level, you can make your optimal configuration without spreading this out into too many different parts. Okay, so this is very important concepts that make it very flexible to configure your runtime environments. The lower level here with this @ signs in the beginning is the output from the discovery. So you can take that output and obviously customize it, and then it will be automatically concatenated with the LPAR and then sysplex level members. Okay, before we do a recap, are there any questions on the chat that we should be discussing?
So at this stage, it's all quiet.
Okay, good. So let's quickly recap on some of the enhancements that I presented last time. The details for all of this is available in the handout in the appendix, just in case you want to read up on them. So I want to start with advanced storage management agent support. So this PTF included supporting all the advanced storage monitoring agents that you can configure and integrate in your Tivoli Enterprise portal for monitoring. But in addition to that, it also includes the configuration aspect for PDS version 2 in the same PTF. There is a blog that is linked here that you can check out on to understand what it means to configure these agents. It's actually very, very simple. But the reason I also want to highlight this here is that with the support of these agents, we are 100% overlapping with ParmGen in terms of what agents you can configure. So there is no real reason not to use Config Manager at this point, and consider that this support was delivered probably 18 months ago. There is even less reason not to switch over. Okay. So another important enhancement that has been made was the introduction of a new action keyword, and that's the action keyword option. So effectively, the Config Manager tool has been enhanced to support options on the action level. So why have we done this? We have done this to make certain workflows a bit more flexible and to allow certain workflows to be used in a more efficient way. I'm not going through all these options here, don't worry. I'm just gonna pick a few. Most of these options you will see in the generate action, because the generate action essentially is the one that does most of the heavy lifting. It builds all the data sets, it generates all the parameter members and so forth. So there is the most room to optimize this process. So let me pick a couple. Validate is one I want to mention, because that allows you, before you go down the data set creation and all of that, to quickly validate all the entries that you made in your configuration to see whether they are adhering to the intended parameter scope, or whether the dependencies are right and these type of things. Then we have quick config. This is an interesting option if you have an existing runtime environment and you just want to tweak a simple or a single parameter, set it from yes to no, or increase the size of a certain parameter. This is really where you would use quick config, because it really restricts the generate workflow to just produce the respective parameter members or regenerate those parameter members. Quick load is effectively complementary to quick config, because that option will allow you to just effectively reload the read-only parts of your runtime environment without touching any of your configuration members. Okay. So we talked about the migrate action before, and the migrate action is very important if you switch over from your ParmGen environment. So I just want to reiterate on that once more and show you the power that migrate has at this point. So the first addition to migrate was the fact that you can specify which LPAR scope you want to use when migrating a ParmGen configuration. And that is effectively done using the multiple keyword. We'll see an example in a minute. But with the multiple keyword, in addition to the KFJ sysname input variable, you can say when you migrate a ParmGen environment into Config Manager to use the respective LPAR suffix. So you can consolidate all your runtime environments into a single RTDEF for any given sysplex. The second important part is the in-place migrate. That means that you can effectively reuse the same high-level qualifiers of your ParmGen runtime environment, so that you will have less work on APF authorizations and things like that. Obviously, at some point, this will become destructive in a way that there is no way back to your original ParmGen configuration, but there can be measures to allow that fallback if at all necessary. There is also a nice report DD that is added with the migrate action. I think I saw the developer that implemented this on this call as well. So with this MIG report DD, you will effectively see why certain parameters are showing up in your sparse runtime environment definition descriptors. Okay, so let's quickly look at at an example. So what we see here in this animation is an in-place multi-migrate, call it this way. So multi-migrate because the multiple keyword, so it's highlighted in red here, the multiple option for migrate. In place because we use the same high-level qualifiers in plib high-level qualifier and the migrate wconfig parameter. You see that framed here in pink. It's called my suite in this case. And then if you run this job, in this case 3 times with RTE name RTE A, B, C, and KFJ sysname A, sys A, sys B, sys C, you will see the respective parameter members in your RTE dev consolidated in a single data set. And from there, you can then do typically a generate to produce or refresh your runtime environment. Last but not least, usability. With every new product or new tool that you deliver, there are some hiccups at the beginning when it comes to usability. So we obviously listen to the users here, the user community here. We check AHAs in this area, and so we came up with a couple of fairly big usability improvements. First of all, the substep DD outputs are very limited at this point, and they expose only those DDs that are relevant, for example, in case there are errors. You can still go back and see all of them if you use the option keyword debug, but that's really for those that really want to look at all the little details. The other area where we improved significantly was better status and diagnostic messages in the respective prints. So especially in the generate action, when you run that, you can follow what the workflow is doing by looking at the so-called stage completion messages in the KCI print DD statement. Okay, so with this, I want to switch gears over to the new features, small, medium, and large ones. Is there any question on the chat that we should talk about so far?
Not yet, Matthias, no, but again, if anybody's got any questions, please post in the chat or direct message me and I can bring them off mute. Okay, good. All right, so let's chip away on this part. So I will be starting with smaller ones, and then as we move along, go to the big final with the biggest enhancement at the end. So the first thing, there is a parameter default change for the KDS PDS2 activation parameter. So what does this parameter do? It is in charge of activating persistent data store version 2 for the specific component. In this case, it's the Tivoli Enterprise Monitoring Server. By default, all agents are configured to use this, with the exception of the TEMS. That was a conscious decision we made because obviously the TEMS is at the heart of your monitoring infrastructure. So we wanted to make sure that you carefully
move to PDS2 in this piece. It turned out that PDS version 2, the PDS version 2 migration was very smooth, and we have seen almost no big issues in the field. So we decided to change the default to yes with the respective PTF. In addition to that, additional KCI print status messages have been added that show you how far your RTE is in terms of PDS version 1 versus version 2 enablement. In this case, you see the typical message if the KDS agent is not enabled for PDS version 2, the PDS version 1 flag will still show on. Ideally, you should see PDS version 1 setting is off, because that means that none of the PDS version 1 code is even loaded into memory at that point, obviously saving you some resources. Link to the documentation is always added to these features and you can follow that in the handout. There was another small enhancement on the simplification side. If you're using take action, you can secure those for certain agents. So far, there was no link or no automatic sync up between the RTE, overall RTE security class, and those take action classes. So by hearing from customers and folks working with customers, that was deemed to be an important enhancement. So effectively with this PTF, you can just specify RT security class once, and the respective ZOS network and KICS agents will inherit that setting automatically. Okay, so let's move on. There is an additional AHA that we implemented to allow you to configure a non-default binder executable using a new global parameter, global util binder. And there was a new parameter for OMEGAMON DB2. The rationale here is that in remote deployment scenarios, meaning when you use package and deploy, especially deploy, there was no possibility to customize the respective allocation attributes for the data sets that are allocated via allocDS. And with this option, especially when it's set to deploy, you can achieve that customization in your remote deployment or in your remote rollouts. Okay, so deploy would be the option to use for that remote rollout scenario. There is a similar option, KD2 OMP run alloc for local deployments, which effectively is symmetric to the remote deployment scenario. Okay, now we are coming to an important change, and it's in the security space. And we are always try to provide the strongest out-of-the-box security when we are delivering products. As a matter of fact, certain products that are being released, for example, can only use secure protocols when communicating. So what we did here is for the SOAP, REST API, TA command, and RAS1 console components that communicate with the TEMS, as you know, through a hypertext protocol, we changed the default communication protocol for those components to HTTPS. Okay, so for those that works with HTTPS, there is always an extra set of configuration that needs to be done on the mainframe side with ATTLS, key rings and certificates and so forth, ATTLS rules. So that is something that will be required if you switch over to HTTPS. There is documentation where we help you with that. What is very important, and that's why it's bold red here, what is very important here is that this change does not, I repeat, does not impact any of your TAMs to agent communications, because they do not communicate via HTTP or HTTPS. They communicate through TCP/IP, through IP pipe, IPS pipe, and other protocols, but not HTTP. Okay, so for some of you, this might not be a big problem because you're not using HTTP at all, so both protocols are disabled. So that's one way to look at it. The other way, which also is a nice side effect of this change, is that we now can clearly expose HTTP versus HTTPS configuration, because so far we effectively piggyback the HTTPS configuration on top of HTTP parameters. Okay. Before we go into the couple of new parameters, just a quick tip. For those of you that have no interest in moving to HTTPS, there is a very simple backout trick or strategy for this. So you effectively set the RT times transport mode parameter, which is one of the new ones we introduced, to HTTP, and everything will work as before for you. Nevertheless, I strongly encourage you to look at the documentation / hold, which should be pretty identical at this point, because if you're not taking action, there is a chance some of this communication might not work after you apply the PTF. Okay. So what is this change in terms of configuration parameters? So what we did is we introduced primarily one new configuration parameter at the RTE level, which is called RTE TAMS transport mode. It can have HTTPS, HTTP, or none as the respective valid settings or values. HTTPS is the default, as we discussed, and this will disable HTTP communication protocols for all agents and enable HTTPS. HTTP obviously is exactly the opposite, disables HTTPS and enables HTTP. None, a very easy way for you to disable any of that communication. Up to this point, it was kind of messy to do these things because you had to go through special extended parameters to define these settings accordingly. And in the ++ hold, we will discuss which ones you should be looking at in your configuration. So when you decide to go with HTTPS, there is an additional mandatory parameter, which is the HTTPS port number. And by default, this is 3661. And this will be enforced by validation, whether you have set this or not. If it's not set, your validation will break. So if you call config manager with option validate and there is something not working, you will be told by the validation accordingly. Okay. Last comment on this enhancement. This is obviously also valid for ParmGen in this case. We talk about config manager here, but I just want to make sure this is clear also from that perspective. I pause here for a moment. No questions on the chat. Everyone already using HTTPS?
Looks like they already are. They should be.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get the emails later on then. Okay. Okay, but again, this is an important part. I think Ash mentioned this in a previous presentation as well. Again, the main purpose here is to make you aware that there might be a need to switch over to those protocols in the long term. Okay, another enhancement that was delivered actually just a month ago is the fact that for our enhanced 30 to 70 customers, we see that they are either creating their own workspaces or customizing existing workspaces. And there was an ask to have some form of a developer reference in our product for this. This has been shipped, not as part of Config Manager or PalmGen, but as part of the base component, the TOM component. But what this required was an additional DD statement in the TOM, in the Enhanced 270 started task. This is where configuration comes in. And this additional DD statement is the can be new member or DD statement. So when you apply this PTF, make sure that you refresh your TOM started task, and especially make sure that you read the ++ hold, because this new DD statement has an implication on your SMPE setup as well. The ++ hold gives you very precise instructions and samples for JCLs that you can run to make this a smooth sail, essentially. Last but not least, JobGen has also been enhanced to allocate those new libraries. So if you're using JobGen, you will pick that up automatically. Okay. All right. One other enhancement that we delivered was also driven by customer feedback or by feedback from folks working a lot with customers. You have the create action, to create your runtime environment using some standard parameter definitions, and that create statement always creates the members at the sysplex scope. Okay, and this is probably suboptimal if you or let me say it this way, it might be okay if you're just playing with things a little bit, but if you're looking at a more comprehensive rollout, and especially if you want to scope members at the LPAR level, it becomes cumbersome in a way that you have to start renaming those members to adhere to your LPAR suffixes and such. So this is where the rationale came in to use or to allow option multiple also with the create action. So effectively you say create option multiple KFJ sysname sys and it will create the boilerplate members using the respective sys suffix for you. Okay, so now we come, save the best for the last, I guess. We come to a fairly extensive enhancement, or extensive in a way that it addresses one of the major pain points that we have seen happening while customers were transitioning. So having that said, there is a hub for this out there that we recently implemented. Same PTF as the other couple of last enhancement I showed. So effectively, what we try to achieve here is to allow you to manage copies of your SMPE environments using Configuration Manager, and we will see in the following the rationale why this is a good idea and what benefits this brings to you. At the 10,000 feet level, the create and the generate action have been enhanced with this target copy option, and we will learn the details about this in the following slides. Okay. So when you look at how you manage your maintenance, one strategy can be to apply maintenance after new RSUs come in or after a couple of new RSCs come in. So that's where we see customers typically having maintenance cycles scheduled to update the respective products. Okay. So when you look at configuration, at the Configuration Manager default RTE type that is sharing with SMPE, what does that mean? It means I apply maintenance to SMPE, and I need to run a generate action to pick up that maintenance for my respective RTEs. Okay, so now you say this guy is totally crazy. I would never do that, and you're absolutely right, because what happens in reality is that there will be some form of customized logic that will make a copy of that SMPE golden environment, and you will operate on the copy of your SMPE environment, right? And this copy process can be anything from a dump restore, but it can be also a bit more sophisticated to cherry pick certain libraries from the golden image. Okay. So when you do that, obviously you apply the PTF, you rerun your custom JCL copy, and then you run generate and recycle your started tasks. Okay. So just as a side comment here, what we hear frequently is that, well, I cannot really run generate while my started tasks are running. So this is not true if you are using PDS version 2 exclusively. Because the only reason that prevents you from running generate actions while your started tasks are running is PDS version 1, because it requires exclusive access to some of those history data sets. That is not the case for PDS version 2 anymore, because PDS version 2 is those data sets are allocated dynamically when agent or temps are coming up. Okay, just as a side note, because we get that question very frequently. Okay, so now I mentioned a major pain point in that we are trying to address here. So what is that pain point? Okay, so let's look at ParmGen for a moment, and same things happen here. You have a golden image, you make a copy of that golden image. And what you can do in ParmGen after that is you can create a so-called base runtime environment. Okay. And what that base runtime environment effectively is, it is nothing else than a copy of your SMP libraries, just that they are being renamed to RK ESTA from TK ESTA. Okay, so it's effectively the same thing as just another copy of your SMPE, maybe a little bit more intelligent, because in ParmGen you say for these specific products I want to build a base. Okay, so that's what's indicated by the KCI JP load job here. But from there, effectively, you will have to do your respective ParmGen jobs one by one, and you know, to refresh your runtime environments. Okay, so as you can probably see, the base really is an additional indirection. The benefit of the base, though, is that this is managed by ParmGen. Okay, so now looking at the right-hand side, we effectively in Config Manager we eliminated this additional indirection, but we still and we manage your copies in the same intelligent way as ParmGen did manage the base. Okay, but more than that, you can also do multiple copies of those SMP environments, and we will see what benefits that can bring to you. Okay, so effectively, if you're coming from ParmGen having sharing with base, the answer in Config Manager is use target copies that we manage for you, and you don't need to do any more custom JCL to manage those copies independently. Okay. So let's look at how this works in a little bit more detail. So we have, let's start with create. Okay, so create is the first thing that you would do. Effectively, you create the definition of your copy, so to speak. Okay, so you execute action create with option target copy, and then you say, you know, what is the name of my target copy by specifying target copy name, in this case copy 1. If you want, you can give it a different high level qualifier. That's optional. It will inherit the plib high level in case you are not overriding the high level qualifier. So what this effectively does is it creates a copy 1 member in your RTE-def dataset. Okay? So how does that copy member look like? So it will have obviously the global target high level qualifier, because that's our source for copying, right? It will have the global USST can jar path, which is important because certain products have a need to save stuff in Unix system services. So that's the file system essentially that you get with your SMP installation. Then you have your target copy name as specified in the JCL, your copy high level qualifier, which can be inherited or overridden, as I just explained. And then you have the target copy TIC and jar path, which we pre-generate for you using you know, our typical naming conventions. The first part, var RT home, is the RT USS RT dir variable. Then copy 1 is the RT name, in this case the name of the copy, plus can bin IBM, which is the standard after user LPP from your default installation. You can obviously tailor that if you want to put it somewhere else. You're flexible in doing that, of course. The next big block can be used to define the contents of your copy. Okay, so if you know I will use this copy because I will use a copy that should only include the TEMS, the TOM, and the DB2 agent, because I will deploy the respective RT on an LPAR that only has those 3, then you would check those 3 configure flags, set them to yes, and all the others you can set to no. And in the next step, we will only selectively copy the respective members into your SMP copy. There are a few more tweaking parameters that you can do if you have specific let me say, standards on SMS storage or management classes, or in the non-SMS case, you can specify certain volumes or units to store the copy accordingly. Okay. So with the generate action, what happens? So generate, very simple, generate with target copy, referencing the target copy name. It simply reads the copy member and it copies the target, the SMP and target data sets to your copy respectively. And again, the number and type of data sets depends on what products you have selected. So what this also means is that if you change your mind later on, if you want to include additional products, you can just rerun generate accordingly, and it will update or refresh the library accordingly. So how does that look, you know, in our maintenance scenario? So you would apply the PTF, you would do the copy of the target libraries, and then you would run the generate, referencing the respective copy of your SMP in the global target high level qualifier, and then recycle your started tasks. Okay. What this also allows you to do, and this is really one of the what I would call best practices here, is it allows you to do a stage rollout. Okay, so you can create 2 copies. One is an active, one is an inactive one, and then you slowly make the inactive copy an active copy by copying the maintenance from your golden image. You regenerate the members of a single runtime environment, referencing copy 2 in this case, You make sure everything runs fine, and then you move to the next one. Okay, so this is a very elegant way of doing a rolling maintenance in your environments. Okay, so this was target copy. Any questions to this feature?
Nothing in the chat at the moment, Thijs. Have you got anything? You got another section to continue, or do you want me to open it up, see if anyone's got any
yeah,
questions?
I have one.
You got one more. You got one more section to come. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're okay for time. You've got 15 minutes left, so yeah, plenty of time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. I added this migrate best practice just to re-emphasize how you can do that migration from ParmGen to Config Manager. And I think it's a very straightforward way to look at it. There are effectively six steps that we are recommending. Step 1, and that's a very important step, as we have learned in several of the migrations that we did, is the step 1. I call that rectify your ParmGen config, meaning make sure that your ParmGen configuration is intact, is not dirty. And what that means is that you should have all your configuration changes persisted in wconfig or embed overrides, but never ever have manual changes in your generated members like rcmparu, kds, env, for example. Because obviously the migrate action referencing that wconfig doesn't know anything about it, so it's let me say a garbage in, garbage out issue, right? So what we have done in order to help you with checking whether you are okay, we have written a blog, and that blog has materialized in documentation at this point with step-by-step instructions on how you can check up whether your ParmGen configuration is intact. Because believe me, there will be issues, not only when you migrate to Config Manager, but in your existing ParmGen configuration if you make those manual changes to generated members. The second step here is you would prepare your migrate action job. And here what you have to decide is whether you want to do the in-place migrate or whether you want to consider the multiple option to consolidate into a single RTDEV persistplex. So those are the decisions you should think about when preparing the migrate job. Then you run the migrate job. So when you run the migrate job, make sure you look at the results and adjust if needed. So for example, if you are not using in-place migrate, you should make sure the high-level qualifiers referenced are changed accordingly. Or you should check your migrate report, and you always have to adjust the security exit lib. We'll see that in a screenshot later on. So after, before you run before you run the full generate, you should really consider using target copy. Target copy to define how do I want to do maintenance. Do I want to do this rolling maintenance? Then I would probably do 2 copies and keep track of what is my active and what is my inactive copy. And this is really what you should be doing if you're coming from a ParmGen sharing with base environment. Then step 5 is primarily the generate. Obviously, you would do that for the target copy, for your target copies first, either to refresh the maintenance or to firstly build those copies, right? And then you can run generate with validate, just in case you make customizations to make sure they are all okay. And then you would run the full generate. And that's basically it. After that, in step 6, the stuff that you need to worry about is the traditional complete the configuration steps. And if you decide to use in-place migrate, that should be really benign in a sense that all those rules should be in place for you already. Okay. So this slide, if you can take that away, you're thinking about migrating, this will effectively guide you through that process pretty nicely, I think. Okay, so this is just a little bit of animation about how that looks like. So this is a migrate job with in-place multi-migrate using embeds. So you see these highlighted settings, it's all in the handout. The KCI print tells you that in-place migrate is used, just as an example. And then after the migrate, you have your embeds, sec exits, and RTDEF data sets, in this case with the respective LPAR suffix, which is RSB2 in my case. And then you look at the member, you need to adjust the security exit with the one highlighted here. Otherwise, it will point to RKNSAMU, which is not correct. Or you might want to tweak other parameters. You can look at the migration report to understand why certain parameters are in the respective RTDEF members, to double check on those. And then you can do the generate afterwards. Okay. All right, so this is really the bulk of the content. We still have 10 minutes. I would cover another small enhancement that we are thinking about. It's titled Art of the Possible here. But before we do that, again, the question: is there anything in the chat we should?
Not at the moment, Matthias. So I think if you can probably continue, because so you've got a few more minutes left. So yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think continue, please. Yeah.
All right. So so this aha idea came in with the following request. So I need to have a way to preview configuration changes from some sort of work libraries ahead of time, because I have to take certain actions to prepare my rollout, my maintenance rollout. One example here is I need to have those bind jobs in case they changed. I need to have those bind jobs, or even if they did not change, I need to have those handy, because I need to open a ticket to make sure my DBAs run that bind job, because I, as a sysprog, might not have the necessary privileges. Or I want to check on the new started task definition with the developer reference, for example, to make sure whether that is good and following my company standards, or whether I have to tweak it in order to then place it in the respective proclip library. Okay, so those are very valid. This is a very valid request, and we are currently thinking about implementing this. And what we think here is along the lines of having an option, we call it prepare at this point, that will effectively run those parts in the generate action that produce these artifacts that customers have a need to either review or transfer to other teams in order to prepare a smooth rollout of the maintenance. Okay, so and we will do that, and at the end of that prepare action, we would think about something like a checkpoint that tells us, hey, this is all good until the checkpoint is received, and if the customer is then happy, all these jobs have been run successfully, all these tickets have been closed correctly, he or she would run the generate action again without the prepare option, and the generate would recognize there was a checkpoint, and I don't need to do all the stuff that happened before the checkpoint, and I will just run my remaining stages by refreshing the respective runtime libraries accordingly, the respective parameter libraries accordingly, and I will remove my checkpoint so that I'm up and running. You can just recycle the started tasks, and that's it. Okay, so that's one of the possible extensions or enhancements that we will see going forward. Okay, and that brings me to the wrap-up slide here. I think you've seen that Config Manager is alive and kicking more than ever. So I think one message I want to deliver here is that we are listening to our customers in a way of ahas that are opened, will be looked at, will be evaluated. There, you know, we make any efforts to support those ahas if they are not too exotic. Let me say it this way. So there should be a value for you know, a significant a set of customers out there, because we don't want to build too many balconies on top of the product to you know, make it too complicated. So we have seen this AHA pipeline working very well. Customers opening those AHAs that absolutely makes sense, just like the one that I talked about earlier about the prepare option. Those are the things that really are customer pain points that we are trying to address. And you know, the journey continues. We see more and more customers adopting Config Manager when obviously doing new installations, but also when upgrading installations. That's a good time to switch over to Config Manager, run your migrate, and then from there take it with simple maintenance JCLs to run. And last but not least, if you have questions, if you have concerns, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to me, you can reach out to Ash, to your IBM representatives. Let us know what your problem is. If you open a case, I assure you we will be looking at cases and we will definitely help you on your journey to move over to Configuration Manager. And with that, I'm opening up to another 5 minutes of hopefully
we've got 5 minutes left.
Some questions.
What I will do, Matthias, I'm going to allow participants to mute themselves. So anybody who's listening, if they'd like to come off mute, you can ask a question direct to Matthias. Otherwise, you've got 5 minutes in your diary back. So at the moment, there's no questions in the chat. So unless anybody wants to come off mute. Doesn't look like it. If that's the case, do you want to provide the session code and the feedback? So please, we encourage people to provide feedback on all the sessions. If people can do that, it would be very much welcome. It helps us plan for the next virtual GSC and the face-to-face one as well. Otherwise, I'd like to thank Matthias for his time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks for people for joining and listening. Yeah, thank you.
Goodbye.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah, take care, everybody. Yep, thank you.